Welcome to Tongue Tie Tuesday. I'm coming to you from an unusual location in Honolulu, Hawaii, because my flights got rerouted, but I'm still on my way to the Voice Foundation. Yay! So today we're going to talk about sex. Now, what does that have to do with tongue tie, I hear you ask? Thanks for asking, because it's actually really interesting. Now, first of all, you might be wondering if this actually just has to do with the tongue, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. So I've seen posts and comments in tongue tie groups about people who have trouble with kissing, and it affects their self-confidence, which then affects their relationship. That's not what we're talking about today. We're actually talking about the pelvic floor. Now, people in certain circles will be aware that there's a close relationship between the floor of mouth fascia, the tongue muscles and the jaw, and the pelvic floor. It's not fully understood, but there is a close relationship between them. And in singing, the pelvic floor is very important for breath control, and it needs to be supple and responsive, not tense. So a lot of people with tongue tie actually suffer with stress incontinence, or for adults or for children. Older children may experience bedwetting. And often we think of this as being an issue, or stress incontinence as being an issue with tone. And people think, well, I need to strengthen my pelvic floor. Maybe. Or it may actually be the muscles are hypertoned, where they are under tension constantly, and so they can't be supple and responsive, which also does in turn make them weak. So, some people will report that after their tongue release, they will have immediate resolution of their stress incontinence symptoms. And I'm very happy to say that was my experience too. Sneezing, jumping on a trampoline, which I did for physio. So I noticed within a couple of weeks after my tongue release, that had completely resolved. What else? Well, this is very personal, but for the sake of science and to help others, I'm prepared to go there. Sex was painful for me for 10 years. That's a long time, folks. And after my tongue release, I was not expecting this, but within a couple of weeks, I realized that it had completely resolved and sex was pain-free. Wow, what a change! And who expected that? I just thought, this is my lot in life. No matter how careful or how gentle, it was always an issue. Well, it's not anymore. Amazing. And the other thing that changed was I had a reduction of pain during menstruation. So I've also noticed, just as a by the way, that quite a few women with tongue tie have stalled labor issues when giving birth, and they often have some of the same birth injuries as well. So it's just another sign, another correlation that points to the pelvic floor relationship. So when it comes to singing, like I said, we need that to be supple. And if it's not, then breath support is going to become rigid, or it may tend to just be higher up in the chest and not really engaging the pelvic floor at all. And then breath support will be inefficient, and that tension is going to come through in the vocal tone as well. So I attribute this actually to some of the changes in my singing after tongue release. And, pelvic floor wasn't something we specifically measured. These were my observations after the tongue release that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but that were very welcome. And the other thing is I had big release of tension in my hip flexor muscles, where I had this stretch with my physio, and he said, your knee is a handspan off the floor, it should be flat on the floor, for months and months. And immediately after my surgery, flat on the floor. Very happy hip flexors now. So thanks for getting deep and personal with me, talking about tongue tie and sex today. Who knew? Join me next week.